I love having authors on the air, being one of them and slaving away and writing and being all sort of Jack Nicholson and finding my inner Jack Torrance in the middle of the night to ink Super Bowl books. This here is the best book that I've read in a long time. I was recommending it on the plane back from Nashville. I'll probably be recommending it. I'm only on page 143, so I can't speak to what happens in the ending, but I do have some popcorn out for this one. The book is Big Game, the NFL in Dangerous Times, and it is my pleasure to have Mark Leibovich on, who I don't know, but apparently we shared some buffet food together in the lowly Boca Estate several years ago at the NFL owners meeting. Dude, it is an honor to have you on as a fellow Burt Jones survivor and a guy that is not in the toy department where I have resided since 1984, but you put your big boy britches on and run around with these liars, beggars, and thieves down in Washington, D.C., and you've taken your love of the NFL to write, like, really a great book, a legendary. I'm only halfway through, and I'm addicted, and my wife hasn't heard me laugh out loud as much, but, dude, great job. Dude. I don't know where to begin, man. How are you, first off, and how's the book doing?
You're doing great. You're doing a phenomenal job. I don't need to say anything. You're just like, I mean, I'm just enjoying listening to you. No, it's great to be with you, Nestor. We have, like, a lot of mutual friends. This is a labor of love. I mean, politics is my day job, and I just decided I needed a break from politics because, of course, there's no politics anywhere near the NFL these days, right? So I sort of jumped into this swamp, and the Big Game is basically the product of 3 years of me running around in places I probably shouldn't have been, and probably will not be invited back to, but it was a fun romp. I mean, I went to Super Bowls and drafts and, Hall of Fame induction ceremonies and owners meetings and met a lot of the usual suspects that, are part of the furniture. And, now I'm back to my day job.
Dude, your gonzo work on all of this stuff, I have admiration for because I've written in first person, I've written in third person. I think first person, when you're inside of it, there is something about candid, honest, unvarnished, sometimes mean but honest observations. Literally, I turned to my wife on the plane back. I said, "It's so mean, but it's so true." And and some of it, and your access to Brady's kind of. I found you to find him to be a little bit more endearing in many ways and how intelligent. And I have no doubt how hard he works. But, dude, and I don't want to get into the cheating side and your background on Deflategate and how much I had to talk about it as well. But the cheating part of it, it doesn't pass the sniff test to me at 41, the TB12 and the avocado. And I'm always wondering who the next Lance Armstrong, who's the next Les Moonves we're going to pull down or Superstar or whatever, whatever it is, Me Too or football. I worry for him because this doesn't feel honest to me to some degree.
There is the too good to be true, rap on him that basically we've been hearing for years. I hear you. I mean, I wouldn't call them red flags. He certainly has embraced a counterintuitive training regimen. And there's nothing out there now. But there could be. That's sort of true of public life in general. People are just sort of falling left and right, and I hope that we never learn anything more. I think Deflategate at its very, very worst was a minor equipment violation, which the last thing I want to do is talk about it more, but I'm happy to. But, so here, Nestor, is where I lose every one of the listeners. So I out myself in the book as a Pats fan because I grew up there. But I'm one of the good ones, I swear. I'm self-aware. I have love in my heart. And I have great respect for the game and for other teams and blah, blah, blah. So now that that's out of the way and everyone's probably turned off the radio and turned off anything, whatever they're listening to on, they've probably lost like maybe 80% of potential book buyers anyway. I will say that Yeah, I mean, I'm fully aware of the resentment towards the team, and certainly Brady and Belichick.
Well, it's well earned, right? When you win trophies and you're caught cheating. Brian Billick's our partner here, and I always plug on behalf of the Living Classrooms Foundation. He's been with me for over a decade, and right after he got fired, I remember being on a train with him going up to New York, and all the poop was hitting the fan about Spygate at that point. And I could tell how much, like, just he and I together in private times, as you know, when it's different, right? He said the part that really pisses me off is that they think we all cheat. And I promise you, Denny Green would have no part of this. Bill Walsh would have no part of this because it has no integrity. And your book, really, and we're on the line with Mark Leibovich, big game. I'm holding the book up for you here on the internet so everybody can see the broken shield and all that stuff. But, part of this is the integrity that allegedly starts on page 1, which is something I think you attack throughout all of this is, a 41-year-old quarterback doing this as we start to go back on all of sports, whether it's Roger Clemens or whether it's Barry Bonds, at any level, it just smells really, rancid clam chowdery to me.
Well, okay. So, I mean, Barry Bonds and like Roger Clemens, I mean, they I guess, failed any number of drug tests, or at least, were named in like pretty exhaustive investigation that, that they were using illegal drugs, basically, or performance-enhancing drugs. And, it's sort of, in some ways, apples to oranges, or apples to apples with football and baseball is a little hard because there are different standards, certainly for the Hall of Fame, and how people make these decisions. But look, Brady has never, failed a drug test or anything. I think, look, he took a 4-game suspension the way many players take 4-game suspensions for failing drug tests, basically. And Brady didn't fail any drug tests. He apparently, possibly was generally aware of the minor deflation of football air pressure in the AFC Championship game for, blah, blah, blah. I never, even at its most nefarious, it never struck me as anything worse than, say the Vikings warming footballs on the sidelines or something like that. But look, we can disagree on that. Maybe as a fan, I have rose-colored glasses on this. And if you look at the map of, who thinks that Tom Brady cheated, and the entire non-New England part of the country thinks, oh yeah, he cheated. That's sort of that's the tribalistic sort of way we order our sports fandom, right? You just sort of root for, and you sort of cater your beliefs to who you're rooting for. So maybe that's where I am. But I also, having thought about this way too much and talked about it way too much, I'm probably, I sort of shrug at a lot of that.
Mark Leibovich is joining us here. The book is The Big Game. Look, let me say this. I really didn't even want to talk about Brady or Deflategate, so let's just put that. Yeah. And in a lot of books, I have to ask the author, why did you write this or how did you come to this? Your story's pretty well worn of your love of football but never having been around it and immersing. I can't imagine how pissed off some of these people are in regard to...
Oh, I'll tell you about that.
Let's just start with where I left off in the book recently, which was Roger Goodell's wife and the shield tattooed on an ass of Roger Goodell. So, go for it.
Yeah, good. Well, basically, okay, so I'm at an owner's party. It was the first one I ever went to. You were probably there.
I was.
It was at that Boca Raton...
it was a very, very chilly night. My wife was bald. I remember it well.
Correct. Yes. No. It was, and by the way, the resort was subpar according to the owners because once you've been around Palm Beach and the Breakers, anything else is just second.
Well, the Biltmore's, Biltmore's always be number one with me, but that's just me.
Yeah, it's much better weather. I like the Biltmore. I just like Arizona.
It's a dry.
Anyway,
yes.
We can suffer together. Maybe the Biltmore some other time, but. I went up. I'd had a couple drinks. I went up to Mrs. Goodell, and I was feeling a little uninhibited, and I was introduced to her. And I said, Mrs. Goodell, the First Lady, what is the most ostentatious rendering of the NFL shield that the commissioner insists that you display around your mansion? And she immediately said, well, there's the tattoo on his chest. And I said, I'm totally putting that in the book. That's great. She goes, no, it's off the record. I said, no, I'm putting it in the book. She goes, all right, well, then I won't tell you about the one on his ass. Can I say that? Can I say ass on your show?
You could say it 3 times. You just did. It's fine.
All right, good.
We never assume here because you know what that does, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. We just, you know what? We ask forgiveness.
It's because we saw the Bad News Bears when we were kids, right?
Exactly. Anyway, so that's what you said. And, because I'm a very, very diligent journalist, I had to ask the commissioner later, if in fact this was true. And he assured me, and this is a on-the-record quote, I have no tattoos anywhere. So I didn't, extend my fact-checking beyond that. I didn't want to check for proof either way. But, no, look, here's the thing. I am not the most deferential reporter in the world, especially when it comes to these folks. I was stunned by the level of access I got from Brady to a lot of the owners to the commissioner himself, and that was great. And I think it certainly helped the book, and it helped a lot of stories get told. But I don't have to sort of play in this playground. I mean, I now have sort of like gone back to my day job, and I didn't have any goal here to be sort of invited to the commissioner's, Super Bowl party next year, because first of all, it's not going to happen. And second of all, this is definitely like me being a foreign correspondent and sort of swooping in and sort of getting an anthropology of what this was like. And then, then moving on to the next thing. So that was a luxury in some ways, but
you know what's interesting for me is I've swooped in for 23 years since Art Modell moved the team. And, I have page 114 folded down because I do want to talk to you about that because I've covered all of that from the inside and the outside. I'll just say this, and I wrote this about David Modell when he died a year and a half ago. Yeah. It became a friend of mine. He never lied to me. You know what I mean? And Peter Angelos has done nothing, as he apparently is, in the final stages. He's never done anything but lie to me, right? So, I've written books about Peter Angelos' lies called The Peter Principles. I've written books about Ravens championships and Steve Bisciotti. The Ray Rice story obviously landed at our feet. The Mayflowers. Right. I've sat down with Jimmy Irsay at these owners' meetings and tried to find some sort of kumbaya as well. It's fascinating because we love the game, right? Like, I was in Nashville for my 50th birthday, and I love the Houston Oilers and Robert Brazil and going into I always love you Blue through and through. I had my team taken away in the middle of the night at 15, and when the team came back, I became the number one guy on radio who bought a radio station who was involved with the. And so I always opt to the good. When people say Art Modell, I say, let me tell you what Art Modell did for my community. When I go to Cleveland, what he did to your community, in the same way what Jim Irsay and Peyton Manning have done for the Indianapolis community, which is lovely. I go to Indianapolis for the Combine. I'm stuck there. I freeze my ass off. All of that stuff. But but the league has such good and bad, almost like everything in life. And the bad is CTE, which is, right up there with, anything you would see that would be bloody on the political lines of it kills people. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's a Khashoggi kind of thing of you're killing people for sport, Roman gladiator stuff. Why the hell are we fans? And I think through that makes your book awesome, dude. Really, it does. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot to weave through. I mean, there's certainly, it's hard to be, I am an unabashed fan in this book, but I'm also fully aware, and I suspect you are too, Nestor, that it's hard to be sort of a thoughtful fan without thinking through the ramifications of this. I mean, there's a little anecdote I have. I assume you haven't gotten to it because it's later in the book, but essentially, I went to one of the Hall of Fame induction ceremonies, and all these gold jackets Hall of Famers sort of wandering around, and something about being at the Hall of Fame, you feel like a little kid. And I just ran up to Tony Dorsett, and he had this, he's got this really kind of still boyish face. I mean, he's got a really young-looking, just face still.
And he's smaller than you think he is in person.
Smaller than you think he is. Yeah, I mean, he's about my height. I'm 5'10", so I mean, he didn't look, he wasn't towering over me. So I said, look, I'll never forget watching you with my brother, watching Monday Night Football and that 99-yard run you had against the Vikings. And he immediately came back and said, yeah, there was only 10 men on the field because Ron Springs, the fullback, was confused and he wound up on the sideline. So not only did I do that from 99 yards out, but I did it with 10 men on the field. And by the way, that record can only be tied. It can never be broken because, of course, you can't start a play from scrimmage from the end zone. And he then proceeded to reel off the entire, the formation, what the score was, what time of the game it was. And he had this encyclopedic memory of that incredible play.
And he's watched the All-22 for 40 years now, right? Literally.
What's that?
He's watched the All-22 for 40 years on it. He knows everything.
Probably. He knew everything. He just remembered everything. But, I've read enough about Tony Dorsett over the years to know that, like a lot of former football players, I mean, his life has been just chronic pain, and he can't remember what he did a few minutes ago, and he needs, round the clock care. And, the game took a terrible toll on him. And, there are always all these, in these profiles of former players, you always get the question at the end, would you do it again? And they always say, yes, I would do it again. But, there's no question that you have these moments where you're reliving the glory of, like, your greatest days. And as a fan, I certainly enjoyed that vicariously. But that's mingled with, the heartache of what the game does to you.
Well, it's real when you're around it, even, a couple of years like you. I remember being in Dallas at the Super Bowl, and there's Earl Campbell sitting there, right?
Yeah.
It's Earl Campbell, and I've got to, talk to Earl Campbell. And Earl said, sit on my lap. So I sat on Earl's lap like Santa Claus to get a selfie because Earl can't get up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he got his walker and everything.
And, how much joy it brought me as a 10-year-old that if I have to write the shoot book that you've written on this, I've seen some tragedies here with John Mackey in Baltimore, and and Johnny Yu, who couldn't grip a pen at the end to sign an autograph. And we're on the line with Mark Leibovich. He's written an incredible book called Big Game: The NFL in Dangerous Times. I highly recommend it. And I do want to talk about Burt Jones a little bit and where all of this lies. Because you sort of went through it and where franchises are. Dude, I'm worried about our baseball team here, with the ownership having been where it is. I was over in London last year. That's where we were when the big knee happened and all of that. And I know I'm going to get to that when the popcorn gets good around page 300 of your book. Because I haven't even gotten to any of the knee and all of the nonsense that's gone on with Trump over the last 2 years as well. And I know you come from that background. But I would just say, the league's going global. It's going to have to. And I don't know how a team's getting to London, whether it's going to be the Chargers or the Jaguars. But to your point, these stadiums have defined my life in doing sports here in Baltimore because we lost our football team. We built a baseball stadium. Then we stole a football team, and the taxpayers are still paying for it. And now we got a baseball team in decay, and Camden Yards doesn't look so good when no one wants to come to it, and the team loses 115 games. So it is amazing what municipalities have sacrificed where California's just flown a middle finger and said, we're not going to do this anymore on the civic nipple,
Absolutely. And I'm sure there will be more communities that do that. Especially given that the NFL is just so flush with cash. And we hear about this all the time, and the league is not shy about saying how wealthy they have. But, look, first of all, I love the Baltimore Orioles. I love the Baltimore Colts. The Ravens, I grew up a Colt. I wasn't a fan, but I just loved watching that team. And, Burt Jones and Roger Carr and Lydell Mitchell and all those guys back when I was, really first learning to love football. But I cannot imagine what it would be like to lose a team, as Baltimore, did in the, really the most, really tragic kind of way. It's just sort of an iconic double-crossing, or not double-crossing, but just like the most cowardly sports move in history, right? But, I hope to God that doesn't happen to the Orioles. And I live in D.C., but I much rather, I guess I'm an American League fan, so I much rather would go to Baltimore to watch an American League games, usually if the Red Sox or the Yankees are in, instead of staying here and see the Nationals play locally. But I don't know. Look, it's rough. But I do think that fans and taxpayers are getting pretty smart and pretty fed up with the idea that they're going to be paying for anything.
Here's Mark Leibovich. The book is Big Game, the NFL in Dangerous Times. Mark, I want to let you know that this is the first book that I've taken, literally physical book, and I sell them too, so I know the value in my carry-on, and I didn't have my TSA pre, and I went through. The book sets off TSA pre. I'm just letting you know.
Really?
So it's amazing that security is now harboring books as being something weird. So
I wonder. Maybe my book is just so radioactive and so controversial. It just sets off even TSA security things.
Hot.
Even the pre.
By the way, to give you a little background on the Goodell thing, he was an Orioles bat boy. Did you know that as a child?
I didn't know that. I knew he liked the Orioles, and I knew he liked the Colts.
Well, that would have been an icebreaker. And on the baseball side of things, you down there in D.C., the Nationals have become something, haven't they, right? You didn't write a book about baseball, but I can tell you're a baseball fan. The business of baseball, how you've used greasy as part of the term. The whole antitrust thing and how the Nationals happen. The Nationals are a real thing now, right? Out of this embryo, something they make a lot of money. Bit.
It feels made up. I can't, and again, maybe I'm a little old school here, but, you go. I remember they won the division a few years ago, and like Wolf Blitzer was in the locker room celebration, and not as a reporter either. I'm like, what kind of baseball team has Wolf Blitzer in, celebrating their division championship? I don't know. I still can't get excited about them for some reason. Although I will say, look, it's nice to sort of take my kids to a game. It's pretty easy. It's not a very heavy lift, and the public transportation's really good. And it's not like it takes forever to get home, but. I don't know. I mean, baseball's got a real problem. I mean, I think the time of game stuff is like a huge problem, and I just think they should do they really need to get in front of it, which they're not now. I mean, I was, so I'm a Boston person, so I had this heavenly experience on Sunday night where I had the Red Sox and the Astros on TBS, and then I had the Patriots and the Chiefs on NBC. So I was just flipping back and forth, and even though the Red Sox game was more important because it's postseason, I found it much easier and much more enjoyable to watch football. It's a much better TV sport. So I don't know if that's a statement of where I am now as far as my sports taste, but look, you cannot beat football as a TV sport. I mean, 77 of the top rated shows in America in 2017, 77 of the top 100 top rated shows were football games. In the last 6 weeks, the top rated shows, the top 15 were all football games. So, I mean, it has this incredible synergy with the shape of the field and the shape of TV screens, and so that gives it such a great advantage. But I don't know. I mean, I still like baseball, but I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to sit for 3.5 hours and watch a game.
We are getting old. He's Mark Leibovich. You can also follow Matt on Twitter. The book is A Big Game, the NFL in Dangerous Times. So I'm going to leave you with this. I guess we would say, if this were a Mork and Mindy episode, we'd say, what have we learned here, right? And you said something a minute ago. Your quote was, the Major League Baseball might have a real problem here. The NFL might have a real problem here, and I guess that's the crux of your book, to say and let me tell you this, and I literally showed this to some people on my phone. I've gone to NFL games. We're now in week 7, but you may be hearing this at any point. I haven't been in anything that's resembled a full stadium this year. And Mark, I've covered this half of my life now. The Ravens have been around 23 years. Most years, I never walked into a stadium that was, other than Cincinnati, that even when the Browns sucked in 2008, there were still 62,000 people in there, and it was full, and your ticket was still worth $40 or whatever, not worth kindling paper or the paper that it's not even printed on anymore because they're digitized. Maybe that's part of the problem. You can't even feel the ticket anymore. Right. But the stadiums are empty with paid customers, and mamas don't want to have their babies grow up to be Tom Brady. And, I am worried. It's how I feed my family, too, Mark. Don't tell anyone,
No doubt. No, I think you're right. I mean, first of all, Jerry Jones told me this. I mean, only 7% of NFL fans have ever set foot inside a stadium. So that gives you a window into the degree to which, it's such a TV sport, right? I mean, well over 60% or so of the revenues come from broadcast contracts. But Jerry Jones also says that no one wants to see empty seats even on TV. I mean, I was watching the Red Sox and Yankees in the playoffs last week, and Yankee Stadium. I mean, these are exciting games. I mean, it's postseason; they're playing their rivals, and there were a ton of empty seats just in the front. And these are the really expensive seats. You know how you can just see empty seats in Yankee Stadium now, like in the really, really fat caddy sections, because I don't know who's affording them.
It's a sea of sort of leather, like Corinthian leather, if you know what I'm talking about.
Well, it's a real problem, though. I mean, empty seats. How do they let that happen? You can just fill that with even actors or something. I mean, it's just a terrible look. But you're right. I mean, there is the thing about football that I was really interested in, and one of the things that drew me to writing Big Game was, it feels like this juggernaut's just going to go on forever, and the ratings are tend to be really high, and the revenues are really high, and it's consistently the most popular sport we have in this country. But the Ray Rice thing happened a few years ago. I mean, I remember that couple days after the TMZ video came out, there was just this sense of spiral. I mean, oh my God, where's this going? I mean, is Roger Goodell going to survive this? Will he have to resign? And they didn't have a clue how to deal with that, and it's all anyone was talking about. And then even go to last year. I mean, after, you had players protesting the national anthem, and all of a sudden the president of the United States is getting himself in the middle of this, and you had people boycotting, and the And, Roger Goodell had no idea how to handle this. I mean, you do get a sense that the league survives, just because of the greatness of the game, but in spite of a lot of the people who run and own the game.
Well, every bubble bursts. We're always wondering, how big can the balloon get? And
right.
that I think is what you cover. And listen, I'm looking forward to covering and following and doing all the things you're doing. You're getting back on the beat here, right? You're diving back into red and blue and purple and all of that good stuff here, right?
I think at some point, yeah. Now, I will dip into football periodically, but. I reserve the right. I'm still going to be a fan, but I reserve the right to not be a fan at any moment. And but in the meantime, I got politics to worry about again. So that's what I got to go back to, unfortunately.
Dude, I'm holding the book up right now, and the best thing in life when you're an author, and I'm paying you the highest compliment ever, is that when the outside paper on the outside of the book is crinkled up because you've fingered it all up and you've made a mess of it, and it's gone in and out of bags. So
absolutely,
your exterior cover is dangling a little bit, which means I'm on page one something. So
I am honored by the dangling. And by the way, try that with a Kindle, huh? Yeah.
In the sun.
That's awesome. Hey, Nestor, this is awesome. Thank you for having me on, and hopefully we'll meet in person one day.
All right, man. Absolutely. Over a cocktail. I hear you drink, which is great because I do too. All right.
Not as much as Jerry, but I've been known to enjoy a cocktail every once in a while.
And I promise you to use the F word privately even more than Tom Brady did. How about that?
Go for it. I'm ready.
Mark Leibovich.
Thanks, man.
Big game, the NFL in dangerous times. I'm going to go ahead and say it, the best sports book to hit my desk this century, okay? So I'm going to leave it at that, and that's no offense to any other sports book, all right? It's good. You should go read it. If you love football, you'll love the book. It's as simple as that, all right? Highest endorsement I can pay. All right. Nasty at WNST.net. You can find me. I'm out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook, as well as our YouTube, WNS TV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.